Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today I'll be teaching how to make a short sleeve V-neck t-shirt. With the weather turning, I wanted to focus on cute and comfy makes made for the sun, and that's what we have here. A 90s-ish inspired t-shirt, perfect to pair with jeans and a bucket hat. Speaking of, if you are looking to make a fit to fit your aesthetic, be it 90s, fairy, trendy, or grandma, we've got you covered. We have hundreds of the most unique, modern crochet tutorials and patterns you're sure to love, with new patterns weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado, for this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 300 grams of yarn, and that's 575 yards if you're stateside, and the individual measurements will be on the screen. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you like meatloaf. I actually really love meatloaf. That used to be my favorite meal from Boston Market when I was a kid. Details for the giveaway down below. We are using 5 stitches for this project, and they will be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and Trinity Stitch. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making an odd number chain, starting 1 inch underneath our underarm down to where we want the bottom of this top to be, so you can make this cropped or full length. I'd like for mine to be full length, so I'm going to start by making a chain that is 15 inches or 38 centimeters. That's a chain of 57 for me. Now that we have our chain, we're going to get started on our first Trinity Stitch row. Now our first Trinity Stitch is going to be done a little bit differently than the rest of our Trinity Stitches, so what we're going to do from here is block off that last chain, do a chain 1. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch, that is our turning chain. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with 1 single crochet. So bring your hook down, into that chain, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first single crochet. Now getting started on our Trinity stitches, we all want to make sure that we're using a medium to loose grip so that our following rows aren't too tight to work into. So what we're going to do the first Trinity stitch is start by inserting our hook into that chain that our single crochet is in. So into that occupied chain, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through. So when we pull through, we should have a total of 2. We're going to be pulling up a loop into the following 2 stitches because we want a total of 4 loops on our hook. So into that following chain, insert, yarn over, pull through for 3 loops. Into that following chain, insert, pull through for 4 loops. Then we're all going to yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops. And then to close off every Trinity stitch, unless stated otherwise, we're going to chain 1. Now our first Trinity stitch is finished. Getting started on our second Trinity stitch, we're all going to start by inserting our hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, so that stitch will be occupied, and this is mine right here. I'm going to bring my hook down, into that chain, pull through for 2 loops. We're going to want to pull up 4 loops again, so into that following chain, insert, yarn over, pull through for 3 loops, and then into that following chain, insert, pull through for 4 loops. Then again, yarn over, pull through all 4, and chain 1 to finish off our second Trinity stitch. Let's do another. Starting with that same stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, Into that last stitch, we're going to insert, pull through for 2 loops. Into that following chain, insert, pull through for 3 loops, and then into the chain after that, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, and do a chain 1. Let's do just one more, a little bit faster. Into that last stitch that our previous Trinity Stitch is worked into, insert and pull through. Following chain, insert, pull through, chain after that, insert, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, and chain 1 to secure. Now from here, we're going to continue to do our Trinity Stitch until we have 2 chains left. So we are back and we have made our way all the way down with our first Trinity Stitch row, and we should all have 1, 2 chains left. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to be closing off the Trinity Stitch for every odd number row. It's going to start the same way that we've started every other Trinity Stitch. So let's all start by inserting our hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity Stitch is worked into. So insert, pull through, and we're still going to be pulling up 4 loops. So into that following chain, or the second to last one, insert, pull through, and then into that following or the last one, insert, pull through. Now from here, we're going to yarn over, pull through all 4. Now when it comes to doing the last Trinity Stitch for every odd number row, we are not going to do a chain at the end. We're going to single crochet, half double, and double crochet into that same last stitch. So insert your hook into that occupied stitch, starting with 1 single crochet. Now if we were doing a non-increased row, we would end the row after just 1 single crochet. But since we are doing an increase, we're going to half double crochet into that same chain as well. So yarn over, into that last chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and then another double crochet into that same chain. So yarn over, into that occupied stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is the end of our row 1. Now every even number row is not going to have any increases or decreases, so we're just going to chain 1 and flip our work. We are all going to start with our first Trinity Stitch, which is the same as the first Trinity Stitch that we did for the previous row. So start with 1 single crochet into that first stitch. Then we're going to need to pull up 4 loops. So starting with that same stitch that our single crochet is in, pull through, into that following, pull through, and then into that following, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4, and to finish off our Trinity Stitch, chain 1. Now let's just get started on the following Trinity Stitch. Into that last stitch that our previous Trinity Stitch was worked into, we're going to insert, pull through, into that following, pull through, and into that following, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, and finish off our Trinity Stitch with a chain 1. Continue on with our Trinity Stitch until we all have 2 stitches left again. We are back and at the end of our row 2. We should all have 1, 2 stitches left. Now let's do our last Trinity Stitch. So what we're going to do is start off our Trinity Stitch per usual. So inserting our hook into that last stitch our previous Trinity Stitch was worked into, pull through into that second to last stitch, pull through, and then into that last stitch, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4. Now since we're at the end of a even number row, this is the bottom of our piece, so we don't need to be doing any increases or decreases. So we are just going to close it off with a single crochet. So after we pull through all 4, we want to make sure that we are not doing a chain 1, and we're just going to insert our hook into that same last stitch with 1 single crochet. Now our even number row is finished. It's now going to be a repeat of these 2 previous rows, so quickly let's just do the 2 following rows together, and then we can move on. So let's all chain 1 and flip our work. So during our first Trinity Stitch, insert into that first stitch with a single. Then insert your hook into that same stitch with a single, pull through, following, pull through, following, pull through for 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4, chain 1, and then to do our second Trinity Stitch, insert your hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity Stitch was worked into, pull through, into that following, pull through, and into the following once more, pull through for a total of 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4, and chain 1. Continue to do our Trinity Stitch until we all have 2 stitches left. We are now at the end of our row 3. It's going to finish up with an increase just like how our row 1 did, so let's get that started. We're all going to start our last Trinity stitch the same way that we've done our other ones. So into that last stitch from our previous Trinity stitch, pull through, into that second to last, pull through, into that last, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook. Yarn over and pull through all 4, and to do our increase, again, we are not going to do a chain. We're going to insert into that same last stitch with a single, a half double, and a double. So insert with a single, into that same with a half double, and then into that same just once more with a double crochet. Now our odd number row is finished. Our even number row is not going to have any increases or decreases, so chain 1, flip our work, and then do our Trinity stitch all the way down, leaving the last 2 just so I can remind you how we're going to close off every even number row. We are now at the end of our row 4, so let's close this row off together. Start off by inserting our hook that last Trinity stitch was worked into. Insert, pull through, into that following, which is the second to last, and then into that following, which is the last, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and since this is bottom, just single crochet into that last stitch. From here, chain 1 and repeat our 2 previous rows until we can get an underarm portion that can reach from mid-underarm over to the corner of underarm. Then I will meet you back right after an odd number row or along the increase end so we can get started on our shoulder from there. Alrighty, so I am back with my underarm portion. I have a total of 5 rows. My width is 2 inches or 5 centimeters. And now from here we're going to get started on our shoulder. Since we all should have ended along the top, we're all going to make an even number chain that reaches the top of our shoulder. Now I needed a total of 4 inches or 10 centimeters. So I made a chain 14, and we're just going to do our Trinity stitch all the way back down. So once we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert your hook, starting with our first Trinity stitch, so that's always going to start with a single crochet, and then continue on finishing our first Trinity stitch, then do our normal Trinity stitch all the way down, making sure that we close off the row with a Trinity stitch that ends with just 1 single crochet, because it does need to be blunt. So we are back. We have just finished up our first shoulder row. I've made my way all the way down with my Trinity stitch, and this is the bottom folded right here. As you guys can see, I ended it with just 1 single crochet because we need the bottom to be blunt. From here, we're going to continue to repeat this row, so a Trinity stitch row with no increases and no decreases, until we get a shoulder portion that reaches just about 2 inches away from the base of our neck. And then I will meet you back right after an even number row or along the bottom so we can get started on the neckline from there. We are back and we have just finished our shoulder portion. Now I have a total of 10 rows and my width is now 4 inches or 10 centimeters, and now we're going to get started on our neckline. So we are back and we have just finished up our shoulder portion. I have a total of 10 rows and my width is roughly 4 inches or 10 centimeters, and now we can get started on our neckline decrease. So what we're all going to want to do is insert our stitch marker into any even numbered stitch from the top where we want our neckline to start to curve, because this is going to be a V-neck. Now I've inserted my stitch marker into the 20th stitch from the top. That's just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. Now this portion is going to be completely up to you, and we have to keep 2 things in mind. We are going to have a collar to add to this as well, so make sure that you're taking that into account when you're inserting your stitch marker. And also, if you would like more coverage, go ahead and insert your stitch marker higher. I would suggest roughly around where our collarbone is, or if you would like to show a little bit more, I would suggest to insert your stitch marker lower, roughly at about mid-chest. But feel free to insert your stitch marker into any stitch that you'd like. But once we have our stitch marker into place, since we all should be along the bottom, we're going to do our Trinity stitch all the way up until we have 4 stitches right before our stitch marker. We are back and we should all have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches left right before our stitch marker, and now we're going to finish this off with a Trinity stitch decrease. So let's get that started. This is going to be our last Trinity stitch, so it is going to start off the same way that we start all of our other Trinity stitches. So all together we're going to find that last stitch from our previous Trinity stitch, insert your hook in through that stitch, pull through, into that following stitch, pull through, and into the stitch right after that, pull through. Now we should have 4 loops on our hook and should have 2 stitches left before our stitch marker. what we're going to do from here is yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. So that is per usual. And now we're going to do a decrease of 3 half double crochets. So we're all going to start with a yarn over. Start by inserting your hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into. So into there, pull through for 3 loops on our hook, into that second to last stitch, pull through for 4 loops, and then into that last stitch, which is the stitch right before our stitch marker, pull through for 5 loops on our hook. Then all together yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops. And now our first neckline row is finished. Now just double check and make sure that we have an odd number of stitches for this row. And then for our following row, we aren't going to have any increases or decreases. So just chain 1, flip our work, and do our Trinity stitch all the way down, making sure that we end the row with just 1 single crochet into that last stitch because it is the bottom of our piece. Now to do our decrease together once more, at the end of that following row, chain 1, flip our work, and do our Trinity stitch all the way back up, leaving the last 4 stitches again. Alright, so we are back and we are nearly finished with our first 1, 2, 3 rows for our neckline. Right after that third neckline row, we should all have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches left. Now we're going to do our decrease again. So it's going to be done exactly the same way that we just did with each other, so let's do this together. We're going to start our Trinity stitch per usual, so insert your hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through into that following stitch, pull through and into the stitch right after that, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, and we should have 2 stitches left. From here we're going to yarn over, pull through all 4, and then to do our decrease of 3 half doubles, yarn over, insert your hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through for 3 loops on our hook, into that second to last stitch, pull through for 4, and then into that last stitch, pull through for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then just yarn over, pull through all 5, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until this portion can reach from mid-underarm over to mid-chest. And then I'll meet you back right after an odd number row. We can do our middle row and then mirror everything we just did here on the other side. I am back and we have just finished up the first half of our neckline. I have a total of 15 rows. My width is now 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to do a middle row. Our middle row is going to be a Trinity stitch row, making our way all the way down. So pretty much the same as all of our other even number rows. And then we're going to mirror everything we did here on the other side. So once we finish up our middle row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then make our way all the way back up with our Trinity stitch, leaving the last 2 stitches. And we just want to make sure right before we move on to the second portion, we want to insert a stitch marker into the top of this middle row that we're about to do so that we know where the middle stitch is when we get started on our collar. So all we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, get started on this first Trinity stitch, which starts with a single crochet. Everything is per usual. I'm just going to finish up this Trinity stitch the same way that we normally would. And before I do my second Trinity stitch, I'm just going to insert my stitch marker into the edge of this row. Now get this row finished up, get the following row nearly finished, and I will meet you back when we have 2 stitches left. So we are back. We have just finished up our middle row and made our way all the way back up with our first increase row for the neckline. And we should have left the last 2 stitches, so we're going to do the same increase that we did for the underarm. So as a quick refresher, we're all going to insert our hook into that last stitch from our previous Trinity stitch, pull through into that following stitch, pull through and into that following, which should be the last stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, there we go, pull through all 4, and since this is the increase side, we're going to finish off this row with a single, 1 half double, and 1 double crochet. So into that last stitch with a single, into that same last stitch with a half double, and then into that same last stitch with a double crochet. And that's it. Our following row, which should be an even number row, is going to be a row with no increases and no decreases. So chain 1, flip our work, and do our Trinity stitch all the way down. From there, we're going to continue to repeat those 2 rows until we have the same amount of rows that we have for the decrease portion of our neckline, not counting that middle row. And then once we do, I'll meet you back so we can work straight into our shoulder from there. So we are back. I have just finished up the entirety of my neckline. I have a total of 21 rows and my width is now roughly 8 inches or 20 centimeters. Now from here, after our last neckline row, we all should have ended along the top. What we're going to do from here is make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we got started on our neckline. So since I skipped a total of 20 stitches, I made a chain of 20, and then from here we're going to do our second shoulder portion. So we're just going to do Trinity stitches with no increases and no decreases for the same amount of rows that we have for this shoulder portion right over here. And once we have the same amount of rows, I will meet you back so we can get started on the second underarm portion to finish up our front panel. My second shoulder for my front panel is all finished. I have a total of 26 rows. My width is now 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters. And now what we're going to do from here is our underarm. So we're going to start by inserting our stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made that led all the way up to our shoulder. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a chain of 14. So along this side, I inserted my stitch marker into the 14th stitch. And then to get started on our first underarm row, we're going to make our way all the way up with our Trinity stitches, leaving the last 4 stitches, and then I'll meet you back to do a decrease row. Our first underarm row is nearly finished. We should have all left 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches left right before our stitch marker, and we're going to do our decrease. Now the decrease is going to be done exactly the same way as the first portion of our neckline, so let's just do this one as a refresher. We're all going to start by starting off our Trinity stitch per usual. So into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, into that following, pull through, and following, pull through. Should have 4 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through all 4, and now we're going to yarn over, preparing for a decrease of 3 half doubles, starting with that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, insert, pull through, into that following stitch, which is the second to last, pull through, and into that following, which is that last, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 5, and that's it. From here, we're going to do another Trinity stitch row with no increases and no decreases, since we did an increase into every other row for the first underarm portion. Then all we're going to do is continue to repeat these 2 rows until we have the same amount of rows as our first underarm portion. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut. We are back and we are completely finished with our front panel. Now I have a total of 31 rows. My width is now 12 inches or 30 centimeters, and right after my last row I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now from here we're going to be doing the back panel, and it's going to be done fairly similarly to the front panel. We just aren't going to have the same neckline. So getting started on our back panel, we are all going to start by making the same chain that we made when we got started with our underarm. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a chain 57. For my back panel, I'm going to start with a chain 57 again, and I'm going to do the same Trinity rows for the same amount of rows as our underarm, and then make the same chain that led all the way up to our shoulder. Now once when we have made our chain, all we're going to do is our Trinity stitch rows with no increases and no decreases for the same amount of rows as our first shoulder row, across our neckline to our last shoulder row right over here. And that's not going to have any increases or decreases. When we have that total amount of rows, we shall end along the bottom, and our second underarm portion is going to be done exactly the same way as the second underarm portion as the front panel. Once we have that, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back so we can seam everything together. So now that both our front and back panel are all finished up, we're now ready to seam our shoulders. So let's all start by placing our front panel on top of our back panel, and then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And all we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side row, working into both the front and the back panel at the same time. Let's all start by finding that first side row within the front panel. Find that top loop and insert our hook. Find the first side row within the back panel, insert into that top loop as well. And if you would like to weave in your tail ends as you go, place your tail end over your hook, and we're going to do 1 single crochet around everything. There's our first single crochet. Doing our second one, we're going to find our following side row. This is mine right here within the front panel. I'm going to find that top loop and insert my hook in through there within the front panel. Find our second side row within the back panel, insert in through that top loop within the back, and then single crochet around everything. And that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. So we are back, and we have just finished up seaming our shoulders, and now we're going to seam our sides. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seams that we just did for the shoulders are along the outside. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We are then going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now what we're going to do from here is a single crochet into every stitch, working in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. So finding our first available stitch within the front panel, I'm going to insert my hook. Finding that first available stitch into the back panel, insert my hook in through there, and I do not want to weave in my tail ends later, so I'm just going to place that over my hook and single crochet around everything. Let's do this again. Into our next stitch into the front panel, insert, next stitch into the back panel, insert, and single, and that's it. We're going to continue on with our single crochet row until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. Alright, so we are back and everything is all seamed up. So the next thing we're all going to do is our sleeve. First things first, let's make sure that our work is now flipped right side out, meaning all of the seams that we just did is now flipped along the inside, and then we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that's nearest to our side seam. Then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook and do a chain up of 1. And now we're going to be working into our side rows, working our way up our underarm. So what we're going to do is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. Now this is my first side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. Let's do our following side row. This is my next one. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2. So there is 1, and then there is 2. Again, this is my following side row. Find that top loop and insert with 1. Find your following side row, insert your hook into that top loop with 2. So there's 1, there's 2. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. When we don't, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every stitch, working our way up our sleeve. And then I'll meet you back once we reach our shoulder seam. We have just single crocheted our way all the way up to our shoulder seam. What we're going to do from here is double check and make sure the amount of stitches that we have is in multiples of 3. Now not everyone is going to land in multiples of 3 right away. If you're missing a stitch or 2, feel free to add that extra stitch or 2 that you need to make sure that this is in multiples of 3. Once we have our single crochets that's in multiples of 3, we're going to insert a stitch marker into that last stitch on this side of our shoulder seam. Then we're going to get started on the other side. So finding that first available stitch that we have that's on the other side of our shoulder seam, we're going to insert our hook in through that stitch with 1 single crochet, and make sure you're inserting a stitch marker into that stitch as well so we know where our 2 middle stitches are. Now from here we're going to continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch, and then alternate between 1 to 2 single crochet into every side row, working our way down our underarm. And we do need both sides of our stitch markers to be the same. So if you added an extra stitch or 2 on this side, you're going to add an extra stitch or 2 on this side along the end right before we slip stitch it into the base. So our single crochet row for our armhole is all finished. We are now all going to make an odd number chain the length that we'd like for our sleeve to be. Now we can make this short or full length. I would like for mine to be short, and we do need to keep in mind there will be a cuff as well. So I'm going to start by making a chain 3 since I want a really short sleeve. Now getting started on our row 1, for those of us that only made a chain 3, we're going to have our first Trinity stitch that we usually do and then an increase at the end. For those of you that have a longer chain, you're going to start off your Trinity stitch per usual with our first Trinity stitch and then continuing all the way down until we have 2 stitches left. So just as a refresher, to do the first one, you're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. And into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a single crochet. And then from here, we're going to insert our hook into that same chain that our single crochet's in, pull through into that following chain, pull through, and then into the chain right after that, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, and for those of you that have more chains than me, chain 1, and then continue on with your Trinity stitch until we have 2 stitches left. And close off the Trinity stitch with the increase that we're about to do, but it is the same increases that we've been doing. So when we have our last Trinity stitch nearly finished, we pulled through all 4 but did not do a chain. We're going to single crochet, half double, and double, all into that last chain. So go ahead and single crochet into that last chain. It should be occupied. We're going to half double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet into there as well. And now our row 1 is complete, so let's connect it into the base. So what we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches into the base. So here's 1, here's 2. I'm going to slip stitch into there to close off our row 1. Then getting started on our row 2 or any even number row that is not going to have any increases or decreases, but we do need to work our way up to the following row. So just find that next available stitch into the base. This is mine right here. Slip stitch into there. None of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch. That's just to connect, and flip our work. Now this row is going to be per usual. So all we're going to do is find that last stitch from our previous row, which should be the top of that double crochet. Insert your hook in through that top loop with your first Trinity stitch. So that one starts with a single. Pull through all 4, chain 1, and continue on with the following Trinity stitch, making sure that we close off this row with the last Trinity stitch that is blunt, so the one that just ends with a single crochet. So if you need a refresher, since I just have 2 stitches left, into that last stitch our previous Trinity stitch is worked into that second to last, and into that last, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, pull through all 4 and single crochet into that last stitch. And from here it's just going to be a repeat of an increase row at the end of every odd number row, and then a non-increase row for every even number row. So let's just do the following rows together as a quick refresher. Getting started on our odd number row, we're all going to chain 1, flip our work, and do our Trinity stitch, making our way all the way down. When we have 2 stitches left, we're going to close it off with an increase the same way that we just did, so I will meet you back when we have 2 stitches left. Now we should all have just 1, 2 stitches left. So starting our last Trinity stitch, into that last stitch our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, second to last, pull through, and last, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, and then into that same last stitch, a single, a half double, and then a double crochet. Now let's connect it into the base. So what we're going to do is count up 1, count up 2 stitches into the base. Into that second stitch, insert with a slip stitch, and now our row 3 is complete, and that slip stitch does not count as a stitch. And just to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Slip stitch still does not count as a stitch, and flip our work. And then do our Trinity stitch row with no increases and no decreases. We're going to continue to repeat these 2 rows, making our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker along the top, and then I'll meet you back to work our way down the other side of our armhole. We are back, and we have all just finished the increase side of our sleeve. Now we all should have ended along the outside and have worked into that first stitch marker stitch. Now from here we're going to work our way down the other side of our armhole, but instead of an increase of 3, we're going to be doing a decrease of 3. So since we all should be along the outer edge, let's all chain 1, flip our work, and then do our Trinity stitch until we have 4 stitches left. Now we have made our way all the way down, and we should all have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches left. Now we're going to close off this row with a decrease, the same decreases that we did for the underarm and for the front panel. So just to do the last one, we're going to insert our hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, into that following, pull through, and into that following, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. Then from there we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, into that second to last, pull through, and then into that last, and pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through all 5, so the same decrease that we've been doing, and then we're going to connect it into the base. So count up the next 2 available stitches. Here's 1, which is our stitch marker stitch. Here's 2. Into that following stitch, slip stitch it into there. And now our first decrease row for our sleeve is finished. Our following row is going to be a non-decrease row, so slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, the same way that we normally would, and then do our Trinity stitch row. From there, continue to repeat these 2 rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, and then I'll meet you back to seam it all together. We are back, and we have just made our way all the way around with the decrease side of our sleeve. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam everything together, and this is going to be a single crochet seam, so let's flip our work wrong side out, meaning all of the seams that we have for the sides and the shoulders are along the outside. The next thing we're going to do is insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and we're going to do a single crochet seam, so the same seam that we did for the sides. So just find that first stitch into the front panel, first stitch into the back panel, and single crochet, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. We are back and we have just finished up seaming our sleeve. Now we're going to get started on our cuff. So we're all going to start by flipping our work right side out now, meaning all of our seams are back along the inside, inserting our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom of our sleeve. Now we're going to take our same body colored yarn and we're going to do a single crochet row. So insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now what we're going to do from here is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So let's all start with our first side row right over here. This is mine. I'm going to insert my hook into there, starting with just 1 single crochet. Now this is my following side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and then there is 2. And that's basically it. We're going to continue to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more side rows left to work into, slip stitch into that chain space, do a chain up of 1 cut, and then grab your secondary color yarn. So our single crochet row along the bottom of our sleeve is finished. We did slip stitch into that chain space and did a chain up of 1 cut, and now we're going to insert with our secondary color yarn. So making sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up, we're going to insert our 6mm hook into any one of the stitches that we have along the bottom of our sleeve. It doesn't matter which one. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And for the first row for our cuff, simply put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Make your way all the way around and then slip stitch into that chain space. Our single crochet row with our secondary color is finished. Now our second row for our cuff is going to be a half double crochet row. So right after we have slip stitched into that chain space, all we're going to do is chain 2 and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Alright, so we are back. Our half double crochet row is finished, and now we're just going to do some front and back post double crochets for some ribbing. So just to close off this half double crochet row with you, all we're going to do is count up the 2 chains that we made when we started our half double crochet row. Count that second chain, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through everything, and our row 2 is completed. Now getting started on our row 3, we're all going to chain 2, flip our work, and start with a front post double crochet. So how that's going to work is yarn over. We're going to find that first half double crochet from our previous row, not that chain 2, because remember that doesn't count as a stitch. Insert your hook underneath the body of that half double crochet, bring it underneath and through the other side. Then from here we're going to yarn over, pull through, and when we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now that is our first front post double crochet. Next we're going to be doing a back post double crochet. So let's all yarn over. We're now going to bring our hook underneath our work and then over the body of that following half double crochet. So underneath your work, in through that next gap, over the body, through the other side. Then yarn over, pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All together we should have 1 front post, 1 back post. Let's do another set together. Yarning over, preparing for a front post double crochet now. We're going to find that following half double crochet from our previous row. We're going to do a front post double crochet, so bring our hook down, in through that following gap, underneath the body of that half double crochet and through the other side. Then yarn over and pull through. Then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then a back post double crochet. So yarn over, bring your hook down and underneath our work, in through that gap, over that next half double crochet and through the other side. Then yarn over, pull through to get 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's it. We're going to continue with 1 front post and 1 back post double crochet, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started this row, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, we are back and we have just finished up the cuff for our sleeve, and now the last thing we're going to do is our collar. So we're all going to start with a single crochet row with our primary color yarn. So let's all start by making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then taking a look at the back, we're going to be inserting our hook into any one of the side rows along the neckline. Then go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, and we're all going to start with a single crochet row, but we're going to need to insert our stitch markers into some places. we're all going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And all we're going to do is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So this is my first side row right here. I'm going to insert my hook in through there with just 1 single crochet. This is my following side row, and that's going to be 2 single crochets. So into that top loop with 1, into that same top loop with 2. And we're just going to continue doing this until we reach our shoulder seam along this side, and then I'll meet you back so that we can insert our stitch marker into the last stitch that we're going to do into the back panel. So I have made my way across with my single crochets. I worked into my last side row right before I met my shoulder seam. So all we're going to do is insert a stitch marker into this last stitch into the back panel, and then we're going to work down the front panel, so let's flip our work over. Starting with working our way down our front panel, we have some regular stitches to work into. So just insert your hook into that first available stitch with 1 single crochet, and don't forget to insert a stitch marker into that stitch as well. We're going to need to know where the corners are. Once we have that, continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch. Then once we reach the V-neck portion of our front panel, continue alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, and I'll meet you back once we reach the middle row within the front panel. So we've single crocheted all the way down until we reached our stitch marker within the front panel. Now we just want to make sure that we're inserting in through that middle row with just 1 single crochet, and then we are inserting our stitch marker back into that stitch that we just inserted into. And from here we're going to continue to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, 1 single crochet into every stitch. Now once we reach the shoulder seam over here, we're going to need to insert a stitch marker into the last stitch within the front panel and into the first stitch within the back panel so it can match these stitches over here. And then continue on with alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets until we reach our chain space. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. So now that our single crochet row is finished up, we're ready to get started on our collar with our secondary color yarn. So what we're going to do from here is make sure the work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our middle stitch within the front panel to the right. And then we're going to get started on our first half double crochet row with our secondary color yarn. So from here, all we're going to do is insert our secondary color yarn onto our hook, pull through, and start with a chain 2. Now that chain 2 does not count as a stitch, we just need the height, and we're going to start with a half double crochet. So yarn over and insert your hook into that same stitch that our chain 2 is in, since that chain 2 does not count as a stitch, with 1 half double. Now we should all be at our middle stitch within the front panel, so yarn over into that middle stitch, insert with a half double crochet, and don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch because we do need to know where the middle is. From here, continue with 1 half double crochet into every stitch until we reach the stitch markers that we have along the shoulders. And a really quick tip, we want to make sure that we have an odd amount of stitches in between all of our stitch markers. So if we end on an even number, I would suggest to add 1 extra stitch into that last stitch, and that applies for every section within this row. So we've made our way all the way up with our half double crochets, and we have reached our 2 stitch markers. Into those 2 stitch markers, we're going to do a decrease of 2 half double crochets. So I'm going to take my stitch markers out for now. I'm going to yarn over. Into that following stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, pull through, and then into that following stitch, pull through. Then, once we have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on our hook, just yarn over, pull through all 4, and don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch. And then from here, continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch. Once we reach the 2 stitch markers on the other side, do a decrease of 2 half double crochets into there, and then work your way down, half double crocheting into every stitch. Slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started this row, and then I'll meet you back to get started on the ribbing. Our half double crochet row with our secondary color yarn is all finished up, and now we're going to get started on the ribbing. So how that's going to work is we're all going to start with a chain 2. Still does not count as a stitch. Now from here, all we're going to do is yarn over and find the first half double crochet from our previous row. So that should be the half double crochet that's worked into that chain 2 that our previous row is worked into. And we're all going to start with a decrease of 3 post stitches. So how that's going to work, we're going to start like we're starting a back post double crochet. So yarn over, we're going to bring our hook underneath our work and then into that next half double crochet which is the stitch to the right of our middle stitch, we're going to bring our hook down over that half double crochet, yarn over, pull through for 3 loops on our hook, then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2 for 2 loops on our hook. Then into our middle stitch, which is the next available stitch, we're all going to yarn over, into that next half double crochet, we're going to start like we're doing a front post double crochet. So bring our hook down, underneath that next half double crochet and through the other side, yarn over, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through 2 for 3 loops, and then we're going to finish this off like we're starting a back post double crochet again. So yarn over, bring our hook underneath our work, and then over that following half double crochet, through the other side, and pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then all we're going to do from here is yarn over, pull through 2 for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4 of those loops, and that is our decrease of 3 post stitches. And don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of the stitch because we do need to know where the middle is. Then right after that, we're going to continue on with our front and back post stitches, working our way all the way up. So since we technically just finished up a back post double crochet for our decrease of 3 post stitches, we're all going to yarn over into that next available stitch, insert with a front post double crochet, yarn over into that next with a back post double crochet. And we're going to continue on with our front and back post double crochets until we are 1 stitch right before our stitch marker along the shoulder. So I am back and we have made our way all the way up. Now what we're going to do from here is another decrease of 3 post stitches. So all we're going to do is yarn over. It's going to be done exactly the same way as our other one, so we're all going to yarn over. Bring our hook down underneath that following half double crochet, making sure that we're starting a back post double crochet, through the other side, pull through 2 for 2 loops on our hook, then start with a yarn over again into that following stitch, which should be our stitch marker stitch or that decrease that we did within the previous row. Bring our hook underneath that entire stitch, so that decrease, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 for 3 loops, and then again yarn over into that following stitch, working into the back, insert like we're starting a back post double crochet, insert, pull through for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2 for 4 loops, then yarn over, pull through all 4 of those loops. And don't forget to insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch as well. Once we have that decrease finished, we're going to continue on with our front and back post double crochets, working our way across. Once we reach our stitch marker over here, we're going to do the same thing. So stopping 1 stitch right before this stitch marker, we're going to start this decrease as if we're starting a back post double crochet, and then we're going to do our decrease of 3 post stitches, and then from there we're going to continue on with our front and back post double crochets, making our way all the way down. And then I'll meet you back once we slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started this row. Alright, so we are back with our first front and back post double crochet row, and we're going to be doing 1 more. So what we're going to do from here is chain 2. Now I do want to make sure that we're keeping that middle stitch that we have as a front post double crochet, so what we're going to do is yarn over. And we're going to find the front post double crochet to the right of our middle stitch. So this front post double crochet is our middle stitch right here, and the front post double crochet to the right of it is the stitch on the right of our chain 2. So all we're going to do is yarn over like I said, bring our hook down towards the right underneath that first front post double crochet, which is on the other side of our chain 2, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then from here yarn over, inserting your hook into that middle stitch, which is a front post double crochet, insert, pull through 2 for 3 loops, and then yarn over, finding that next front post double crochet to the left of our middle stitch, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through all 4, and I'm just going to insert my stitch marker into the top of this stitch as well. And from here we're going to continue on with extending our previous row stitches. So since our first stitch right here is a back post double crochet, we're going to be doing a back post double crochet into there. And into that following stitch, we're going to insert with a front post double crochet because that is a front post double crochet, and we're going to continue this, making our way all the way up until we are 1 stitch away from our stitch marker. So we've made our way all the way up until we have 1 stitch left right before our stitch marker, Now into the corners, we're just going to be doing a decrease of 3 half double crochets. So all we're going to do is yarn over. Into that first stitch that we have right before that middle stitch, we're going to insert, pull through, into that middle stitch, go ahead and take out your stitch marker, pull through, and then into the stitch right after that, pull through for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then just yarn over, pull through all 5, and then insert your stitch marker into the top of that stitch. Now from here, we're going to continue to extend our previous row stitches. Once we reach one stitch right before this stitch marker over here, do another decrease of 3 half double crochets. Working our way down our front panel, continue on extending our previous row stitches all the way down, and then slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started this row. We are back and we have just finished up the entirety of our collar, so I did do a chain up, a one, and cut. Now the last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoy the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!